Okay. So just our agenda, quick overview. We just did introduction, so that's done. But we're going to go over what benchmarking is, kind of the ordinance, a little 101 on that and some of the background. Talk a little bit about why we have this program and its role in the Thrive Indianapolis plan. And then we'll get through the nitty-gritty on how to do benchmarking. And then it says Q&As at the end, but of course you can ask me questions at any time. Just raise your hand, or my name is Madison, so you can just yell my name or whatever. Just get my attention, and or ask our volunteers, Stuart or Dan, and they can help you. Okay, so just a quick overview. This is our office. We're the Indianapolis Office of Sustainability. So there's 4 of us. Like I said, Lindsay's here, community engagement, and then I'm the benchmarking program manager. But we also have our director, Morgan Mickelson, and our other project manager, Mo McReynolds. And they're all really great and do a lot of different things for the city. So you might have seen us around at a couple of different events. And we're also on social media and email and all kinds of things. That's at the end if you want to keep up with just in general what the city is up to with the Office of Sustainability. All right, so we'll go into just an intro of benchmarking and what that is. So it's pretty simple. Energy and water benchmarking is just the tracking of electricity, gas, water, or steam data, or whatever utilities your building has. They might not have all of those. So it just uses your meter consumption from whatever utilities are applicable. And then it also considers things like building characteristics, such as where your building is located, the type of building, what it's used for. We're not going to compare a hospital to, an office building, because they're going to be doing very different things and using very different amounts of gas or electricity because of that. Schedules, like how, is your building closed a certain time of the year? And occupancy, we had a pandemic, so a lot of buildings, aren't always at 100% occupancy anymore. We do a lot of hybrid work. So, that, you're going to use maybe less utilities than you would have before 2020 because people aren't in the office as often. And so all of these factors make it so that it's, a good, overall score for your building, because we consider all of these different things. And then that can give you various scores. A lot of buildings, it's really trendy now and important to a lot of buildings. They want to be Energy Star certified or LEED certified. And you can use this data that you will enter into Energy Star Portfolio Manager if you're seeking one of those certifications for a new construction or an existing building. And it can also give you what's called an energy use intensity score. And that considers all these factors I talked about and kind of give you an idea of how your building is performing compared to other buildings that are of similar characteristics. And we are not requiring you to have a certain score or anything like that, but it is very helpful for you, especially with all these grants and funding coming in from the IRA and other federal funding. If you want to be able to enhance your building and utilize some of that funding, or even your own funding, contractors and different people are going to ask you for this information. So having it is really helpful if that's something that you're seeking or interested in. Another aspect is transparency. Indianapolis, like most cities, states, or counties who do have a benchmarking program, we have some aspect of transparency where people can see how buildings are performing. I really like to say you can't manage what you don't measure. So similarly to looking at the nutrition facts on the back of your favorite snack, or when you're purchasing a new car and you look at, miles per gallon or other things about how the car is performing, this data can inform decisions. It can inform, if you want to make upgrades, or it can help people decide if that's a building they want to live in or do business in, when they're looking for a new office, things like that. And we know it's a great opportunity to save energy. But we know it's even better when we share that information with people. And these are the same guides that come from like the appliances, the Energy Star. So it's similar to that, in that it gives you a score that compares different things of a similar type, and then you can make an informed choice. So we have a plan called Thrive Indianapolis. It's our city's sustainability and resiliency plan. It's similar to what a lot of cities would call a climate action plan, and they're becoming very more and more common across the country. And with this plan, there were several goals, but the one we're going to talk about today is our built environment goals. We had goals to increase community resilience, especially with prioritizing equity in policy, planning, and project implementation. And we want to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. And this is a really common year across the board with these plans. And then part of achieving that goal of net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050 is developing this plan, the Energy Benchmarking and Transparency Ordinance for both municipal and non-municipal buildings. And the reason why we wanted to focus on buildings in particular is because we did a huge analysis over all of the emissions in the city, and we found that by far buildings are the leading source of greenhouse gas emissions, followed by transportation and then waste. So if we want to figure out how we can achieve that goal in the best way possible, we should obviously start with the biggest source of these emissions. So that's where this benchmarking goal came from. And we want to try to have a 50% reduction by 2030 from our 2018 greenhouse gas emissions. There are many benefits to benchmarking and transparency. Some of these came from scientific analysis done when we studied what would happen in Indianapolis, but we also, we're not the first city to do this. There are many cities and states even that have statewide programs that have done this for many years before we have. So we have their data too, and we can look at similar cities and similar climates even. There are other Midwest cities that do this, and so we can also see what the trends are. And so it's shown that these things do happen. So there's an estimated $16 million in annual utility bill savings, and a lot of this just comes from the mere tracking alone. A lot of people just don't track their energy use or water use for whatever reason. And just by tracking it, it can inspire them to do things like maybe turn off the lights when they're not in the office, or, get occupancy sensors, get different types of, faucets, things like that. Pretty simple things that aren't actually that cost. Turning off the lights won't cost you any money, things like that. Just by tracking it, people start to see behavior changes, and that results in utility savings. And it also helps you notice if there's maybe something wrong with your bill, something wrong with your meter, things like that. We also know that because people might use less utilities, they're going to lower our greenhouse gas emissions. And this, of course, will help with public health. When our greenhouse gas emissions are lower, we've seen other cities have around a 77 million decrease and increase in public health savings due to decreased hospital visits and other health-related issues that relate to air quality. It also improves your mental health too when you have better air quality. And it can stimulate the local economy. We've seen in other cities people do this. They get interested in upgrading their building and even doing simple things like adding occupancy sensors, things like that. And they tend to hire local contractors. And so it stimulates the local economy and could result in around 1,400 jobs in Indianapolis, as buildings might hire someone to do these tasks. All right, so we will talk about the ordinance itself and why we're all here. This benchmarking and transparency ordinance was passed by the City County Council of Indianapolis in July of 2021. It was a very long phase. It was about an 18-month stakeholder engagement process. Utilities and lots of stakeholders from around the built environment community were engaged or had opportunities to engage at every step of the way, though it was virtual because it was 2020. We started with a voluntary program that you may have heard of in 2022, and that was just giving buildings a head start, getting a chance to get their feet wet and learn about it, and potentially, see some of these benefits in action. But last year, 2023, was our first year where it was required for people to participate in this program. And that started at 100,000 square feet. And then now we're here and it's at 50,000 square feet. And municipal buildings, because city, we do want to lead by example. The city also, we also benchmark our own buildings, but we go down to 25,000 square feet for our internal portfolio. And of course, you're welcome to benchmark below 50,000 square feet if you are, wanting that data and using it for like grants or things like that. So this just gives its timeline like I talked about. So right now we are in the phase where we're at 50,000 square feet or larger for the buildings. And as you see at the very end on the bottom right, in 2026, some of this information will be made public. A lot of it will be anonymized, but we will show just generally how different buildings are performing, and it will be on an interactive map, or at least that's the goal. And people will be able to then see if how the building they live in or work in or things like that, they'll be able to see how it's performing as far as energy and water efficiency goes. This is just a more in-depth timeline. So we have already started to show, again, we're leading by example. So we've already started to show some of this data for our city-owned buildings, and we'll continue to do so, but we'll just be adding similar data for the non-city-owned buildings. Anyone have any questions so far? All right. So we'll go into setting up a property and portfolio manager. So like I said, we use Energy Star Portfolio Manager to do the benchmarking. That's the most common and most recommended way to do this. So if you brought a laptop or a notepad and you want to follow along, you can go to this website here. I'll give everyone a second to do that if they want to follow along now, or jot that down if you want to do it later. But this is where everything will be done and where you can access any data that you might want to use later. And you only need one per organization. So if more than one of you are from one organization, or if you already have an account because you participated last year, it'll just be the same account and you can just log in. But I would recommend that you keep track of your login information and password in case you do retire or move to a different position or job. That way, whoever takes over can continue benchmarking the building. Is everybody who wanted to follow along good? Are we on the website? You don't have to make an account. Yeah, I just wanted you to get to the link. So, all right. So now we can talk about what you need to put on here. So you'll need to create a username and a password. Again, I recommend that it's something that you keep track of somewhere internally so that if you leave your position, whoever takes over can continue to benchmark. But you'll just put in your first name, email, anything required basically. But I would do your work phone or email if you have that and enter all of that. So we can take a few seconds to do that here. And if you don't have your laptop with you or can't do it right now, we do have the handouts and information online too. So the link and everything will be available later if you need that. If you're making an account and are entering information, can you give me a thumbs up if you're good? And I can kind of get an idea of if we still need some more time. Wait a little bit longer. All right, are we ready to move on or do we need a little more time? Is everybody okay? All right. So once you're on Portfolio Manager, this should be, once you have your account set up, and anytime you log in, this should be the first thing you see. For entering your data, and even looking at it once it's already in there, everything will be on this tab that says My Portfolio. So you'll go there first. And so you'll just see that. And then once you click that, you can see different options. When you have the data in, this will give you a lot of analysis and more information that you might be able to use at a later time. And you can also use this portfolio tab to edit any of this information at a later time if you want to, or add your own goals or update details to your building as well. All right. So this is just more information about what you'll find when you're on that My Portfolio tab. So like I said, there's the summary is what's going to open up first, but these energy, water tabs will have where you can edit your gas, electricity, and water data at later times or add more once you're already in the system. And then you can use the other tabs for other internal goals that you may have, but the only ones you'll need for the ordinance are the energy and water tab. And we're going to talk about identifying our properties and knowing which ones would need to comply with this. So we want to make sure we get the most useful results out of this that are both useful for us and for yourselves as you manage these buildings. Buildings that share meters should be benchmarked together as a single property. You can have what's called a parent property. So if you're something with like a large campus, maybe a really big corporation or a school, things like that, you might need to do a parent property. Buildings that don't share the same meter should be benchmarked separately. But you can put as many buildings as you need to, or as many parent properties even as you need to within a single portfolio. To give you an idea, the city has about 35 in its own portfolio, but you can add, it's an infinite number. So don't worry about that. This kind of just helps understand what I was saying. So as you can see, like I said, buildings that share a meter or don't share a meter should be benchmarked together, and buildings that don't share a meter should be separately. So as you can see, building A, building B, building C, none of them have any overlapping meters. So these are all going to be their own property within Portfolio Manager. But in this example, we see that two of the buildings are sharing a water meter. So these two buildings, building A and C, will be considered one property in Portfolio Manager, and building B will be on its own. But they'll all be under the same portfolio. They'll just be their own buildings within the portfolio. Or sorry, I guess B also shares the water. So they only share 1 meter, but they're all going to be together. In this case is what I was getting at. So only 2 of them share a meter. So these 2 will be one property and portfolio manager, and building C will be on its own. So to get the best data possible, you'll want to enter information about your property. So you'll first click add a property, or this, if it's your first time logging in, you might just see this regardless. But if it's not your first time logging in, you'll click add a property. And then you will use this drop-down arrow to select a property type. You can also type when that drop-down arrow comes up, because it's going to be a long list of property types. It covers more or less anything and everything. So you might want to type what your property is and see if something comes up. And if you click this learn more about property types, if you're not sure what definition yours fits into, it will give you a glossary, and then you can kind of see like maybe your property doesn't quite fit. Just pick the one that best fits your property type initially, and then later on we can edit. If your property is mixed use, we can go into edit that, but pick whatever one is the largest use of your building to start, and then later on we can divide up the property, but it's only going to let you pick one at the start. And then again, you can pick how many buildings are on your property. So if you have a parent property and then you have several buildings like a campus, you can enter how many you have. I'm assuming everybody here will have existing buildings, but this could be a tool you could use if you're, working with a company to build a new building. If you want it to be like Energy Star certified, you'd use this for a possible new construction as well. But in this case, you'd probably hit existing, and then you'd hit get started. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. And then that can help inform if you need to make changes in your plans and things like that. Yeah. So yeah, if you're looking to build new buildings, that could be something you would do. But yeah, right now, and you can also do a test property if you just want to practice, and you don't want to like have to edit it later. So you can do a test property as well. All right, so like I said, you'd hit add a property if you didn't see that pop up already. And this is also just where you would click anytime once you're already logged in and have an account, anytime you have a new building you need to add, whether it's just new, like it's a brand new construction, or new, like you just haven't added it to the system yet, you would always hit add a property. And then you need to put in information about your property. Just do it to the best of your ability. Some of this information you might not have available, or you might need to, get some clarification from somebody else on your team. You can edit it at any time, so just do it to the best of your ability, especially with like the year built or floor area. If you're not sure, make a good guesstimate, and then we can edit it later. If you still can never figure it out, just try to put a good guess. It's not going to be the end of the world. Unfortunately, for certain building types, I think because of how often the, occupancy changes with concerts and conventions, they're just, Energy Star's just not able to at this time give you an EUI or Energy Star score. I know they mentioned a lot of updates and stuff coming soon, so hopefully that'll be in the works and maybe there'll be more details. But for now, yeah. Anything else? Okay, so this is more into that. So kind of just thinking about occupancy. Like I said, I can follow up with this with some of the glossaries and definitions from Energy Star. But if you're concerned, like if you have a type of building like that where your occupancy might change a lot for events, concerts, things like that, there are some specific guidelines it gives you for those types of buildings. But in general, you would usually put 100% as the default, but of course there are some unique cases, and you just want to try to, like Stuart said, it's going to try to it kind of just makes some assumptions with this data based on how, and it gets these assumptions based on how buildings across the country of similar size and type perform. It looks at, hotels and offices across the country to kind of get this information. And then at the end, it's going to ask you a series of questions and you'll just check the box if they apply. For parking, you don't need to include parking unless it's a place that is enclosed and has, some sort of utility use. So if you're, if you have lighting in your parking structure and it's an enclosed parking garage or something like that. But if not, you don't have to include it with our ordinance. If you have a data center or something that uses, a really big amount of electricity, and again, anytime you see these blue things, you can click them and it'll give you more information. Make sure you click that because your building will be performing very differently from other buildings in that case. And then anything else that applies, you'll just want to check that box before you move on. If you forget, we can edit it, but try to check what applies. And then the only things you're required to enter in the property use details are the ones with the red asterisk. But if you are hoping to get Energy Star certified or are just curious how your building's performing in that way, even if you're not going to actually get certified, you will have to put anything that has the blue star next to it. You'll have to enter that information. So even if you're not, looking for the actual certification, but just want some of that data, you will need to enter it. But you're only required to put the gross floor area or anything else with a red. Okay. So like I said, if you know the year built and the square footage, put that in. If you need to check in with somebody else and get clarification, get the exact number, or if you're just not sure, just put the best guesstimate you have. If you do find out at a later time, we can edit that. Okay. We use what's called a unique building identifier. I will show you, there's the link here, but I'm just going to pull up the website to show you. So our website for all things benchmarking is this. It's from indy.gov. You can also, if you just Google benchmarking Indianapolis, you'll find it that way. I'll put the link back up in a second, but this is what the website looks like. If you click get started, the how-to sheet that I have printed off pops up. And then there's my email address and other data gems are here if you want to tell somebody about it. But what we're talking about right now is your UBID. So you'll click this here and an Excel spreadsheet will pop up with a list of all the buildings that we have UBIDs for. It should be most buildings, but if for whatever reason you don't find your building on this list when you search for your address, just email that benchmarking@indy.gov email and I will get one for you. It's just another thing we can edit later. So if you don't have one right now, I will get you one and then we can just make sure you add it later when I get it to you. It is really important to have that. The reason it's so important is these UBIDs are tied to the building forever. So if for some reason a street name changes or ownership changes, something, important to your building changes, it's like a social security number, something, it's always tied to that building. So it will never change. So that way we can always keep track of that building no matter what. And then, yeah, so just if you can't find that, oh, okay, I didn't want to do that. Okay. Sorry. Okay, if you can't find that via this link here, yeah, just email me. I will get you one in a few business days, and then just add it later when you get that.
Question. So obviously it's a huge spreadsheet, right? So I
Yeah.
found, I think, some of, not all of our buildings.
Mhm.
There's a whole bunch of lines that all share the same address. They also all seem to have the same UBID, but
Mhm.
then the parcel tag numbers are different. Does that matter as long as the UBID is just the one number?
If the UBID is the same, it doesn't matter. That matters for very specific cases, so it probably doesn't matter for you.
As long as the UBID is the same for every address.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's more for it shouldn't matter for you most cases. And then yeah, if you can't find it or have any trouble finding it, let me know and I can help you with that. Any other questions?
What do you do with that number?
So-
Bill?
Yeah, so once you find this UBID, you will go here to the details tab when you're in the you're in the My Portfolio tab first. And then you'll see a tab that says details. It'll be like the second from the left. You'll go into there. And then you'll see where it says unique identifiers down here and like the middle of the page. And you'll click edit. And that's when you'll enter it. We don't have, some cities have their own name for it. Ours is just called Universal Building Identification, UBID in parentheses. So it's not a special name, just called UBID, and you'll click it from the drop down arrow, and then you'll enter, you can just copy and paste or enter that number in there. Same thing, you'll click this edit tab and you'll make sure that's in there and make sure it matches the one on that list if it's different. But yeah, like Stuart said, it just ties with the building and it makes sure that, yeah, we don't accidentally get repeats or things like that. But yeah, if you're already in it because you benchmarked voluntarily or last year, your UBID should not have changed. They never change. So just wait till the next steps. All right, is everybody okay to move on? All right. So it will maybe ask you this step again, where if you have a campus, you'll click you have more than one building. And again, you can click campus guidance if you're confused or need some more definitions with that. Typically, this would be like for schools or really large, corporations like Lilly or something where they have several buildings close together, things like that. All right. So this is some more information on that, if that might apply to you, if your buildings might be on a campus. It will look like this for you. You'll see your campus, your whatever building is your main building first. You'll see that address pop up first, and then you can add your individual buildings after that. Okay, so now we're going to go into what it's like to enter your actual data. If everyone's ready for that. But this part's the hard part. Once you getting set up is like an hour of your time. Once you're set up, I'd say if you just, I don't know, set aside like 10 minutes every month when you get your bills. It probably takes like 2-3 minutes per building. So maybe it's like 30 minutes total. Once you're in there, you could do it in like half an hour one day. It's just getting set up. And hopefully, the utilities will get the technology in our area to do the same things that, they have in other cities. So I'll just repeat that in case anybody didn't hear, but yeah, sometimes if you talk to your meter representative, they might be able to get you some more information. I will get into like if you have a multi-family property or multi-tenant property, there is some stuff they can, at least one of our utility providers can do for that. But we'll get to that in a little bit. Any other questions? Okay, so we're going to start with setting up a water account. So if you have an online account, you can also do it with paper bills, like mailed bills. But for now, we'll do since the information on your paper bills will look the same as what's about to come up, we'll just use this as an example. But if you have an online account with Citizens for your water and gas, you can go in there and find your bills. And there is a bulk way to enter several bills at once, but I will say it's kind of wonky and is honestly not that much easier than just doing them individually because it's going to really want it in a really specific format. I can send you all that spreadsheet. It looks like this, but you have to have it in this order and in this format, or it will not accept your bulk data and will give you a big error message. So it's not that much more helpful. But yeah, so you can sign on and get your water bill if you have that, or if you have a paper bill, you'll view the same information. And then I'll give you a second to log in. But once you're there, you will go back into your portfolio like everything is, and then you will see these tabs where you'll enter the data. For Citizens, of course, it would be gas and or water and or gas, whatever you have, or maybe steam if you're in the steam loop. But for now, we'll click water, this tab, and then we can enter our water data. And it will be a pretty similar process for entering any other utilities, or if you're adding an additional meter, if you have more than one, same process for each one. All right, so we'll click the water tab, and then I can show you some more about the spreadsheet info, but for right now, I'm going to show you the manual way because, like I said, the spreadsheet's a little wonky and it's really picky about what you put into it, so it's not that helpful. All right, so we're going to do water for right now. So we'll click water, and then you'll click add a meter. And then you can enter a name for it. So you can name it your meter number that Citizens assigns it, or maybe, you can name it something else like your, building 1, building 2, whatever works for you. I personally like to name it what Citizens gives it just to keep track of it better. But whatever works for you, you can name it that. This is an example of what you would see and what you need to pay attention to. So a lot of this is not important for the ordinance and entering on a portfolio manager, but the stuff that's circled in red is what you'll need. Technically for the ordinance, the cost is not required, but I highly, highly recommend it because even internally in our city buildings, we have gotten like a credit from citizens because we found out that one of our own buildings, was being charged incorrectly. So it's just really helpful for you. I couldn't recommend it more because you might find something and you might want this data so you can prove it to them. So it's very helpful, but you are only required to put in this information, which is how much water you're using in this case. And it will have, with all the utilities, multiple units. So make sure that you select from the drop-down arrow, if it's not correct, the correct unit. So it will be CCF in this case. So if it doesn't say that by default, make sure you select the correct unit. And so when you do that, click water, then add a meter. And then you can add how many meters you have, and as well as more information if you would like to. But the only thing you have to do and is essential is how many meters. So you'll do that, and then you'll hit get started. And then, like I said, make sure the unit is correct. So it'll have a drop-down menu. Make sure you put CCF. Like I said, the year to your best ability. If you don't know it, we can edit it later. And then you'll just hit create meters. And you can add, like I said, a custom ID name. So I would recommend you do that so that if you're trying to check something later and make sure everything looks right, or just make sure when you add more data for the next year, if you have more than 1 meter, I would do the one that Citizens gives you, but you can name it hot water, building 1, whatever you want. Whatever is easiest for you to remember as you do this process going forward. And then you'll just click to add an entry. And then it will be quite simple. You'll just take the amount of water you used and your cost. If you want to, like I said, it's very, very helpful. And then you will need to put in the dates from your bills. So the time period that you're being billed for. This can get a little tricky because you might forget that, sometimes you might need a bill from the very beginning of this year. Your bill that you received in the mail or online in January of this year is, from last year's, is from December, right? So you might, don't forget your January bill because that will give you the data from December of last year. So that way you'll have the full, 365 calendar year. It'll give you a flag if it's like there's a week of missing data or something like that, if the dates, if it's noticing that you don't have a full calendar year. So you can do, meter reading dates, you can do the dates on your bill, whatever dates you choose. It just has to be a full a full calendar year, and you just want to be consistent in whatever way you go. A meter breakdown, like for example, some of the fire departments do get meter breakdowns. Put the cost per meter if you can. If you don't have a meter breakdown, then just put your total cost. The 100% the cost is for yours. So whatever you see fit. Like I said, people have found issues with their meters. So really whatever you think is going to help you find issues or make use of the data, What will be transparent and public will just be more how your building is performing. So we're not going to tell people how much you're spending.
Yeah.
No, we won't be doing that ever. And then basically, yeah, once you've done that for one bill, you'll just keep doing this. You'll just click add an entry and you'll just keep doing that throughout. You'll have a full calendar year. Again, you might need the January bill from this year that you received in the mail or online this year, because that would be December. But you'll just do this. Yes, this part is the most tedious part, but I would say once you have this all in, you can just set aside like 5-10 minutes and do this every month. It's just getting it set up that's the annoying part. And then hopefully, like I said, in the future, our utilities will get the software that other cities have, and maybe it'll be a lot easier for us.
How do you do the meter changes?
What do you mean by meter changes?
So you change,
Like the meter number, or you mean like,
goes up, fix that, sticks a new meter.
okay,
New number.
yeah, you can, so yeah, you'll do the same thing. So I'll show you in a second how to edit. But you'll go to the same tab where you click, if it's your water meter, for example, you'll just click on that water tab again, and then basically you'll just like, it doesn't really look like you can edit. It's not the most user friendly, but you'd literally just like where my mouse is, you just, whatever you need to edit, you just click it. All right. So if you have more than one meter or just one, either way, you will click the checkbox after you've entered all your data here. It will look like this. So if you did like a test property to practice, you wouldn't hit the checkbox because you wouldn't want that to apply. But any meter that you are applying, you would hit the checkbox next to it. Click these meters account for the total water consumption for your address, and then you would hit apply selections at the bottom. All right. Any questions so far about water meters? Okay. I'm going to go into electricity next. I'm not going to do gas because it's the exact same process and it would just get really redundant and you'd probably get bored. So I'm just going to do electricity next, but it's the same exact process for gas or steam if you have those. Water is separate, and then anything that's providing energy would be under the energy tab. So gas and electricity, steam. Okay, so like I said, gas will be in the same place, and then it'll be on Citizens. It'll either be your paper bill or in the same or different account, but it'll all come from Citizens. And so will your steam or chilled water, I believe, everything like that will come from Citizens. Electricity, though, comes from AES. So you can use your paper bill or log into your AES account if you have one. So electricity will be housed in the energy tab, as well as anything else you use for energy. So you'll click energy and then same, add a meter. And you'll have a little more questions for electricity. But you'll click electricity, or if it's natural gas, you'll click natural gas. And again, you'll say how many meters you have. And then you will do the same thing and click apply selections. And then make sure you put the correct units. So AES, I believe, is in kilowatts per hour, or kWh is what it should say. Gas should be in therms from Citizens. And then, yeah, if you have multiple things that are in different units, just make sure you either do separate meters or convert them. If you want to do math, up to you. I wouldn't want to. Okay. Same thing. If you don't know the date, just put the best guess and then create meters. Okay. So this is an example of one of our bills from AES. So in this case, we chose to use this date to be and we're going to do that to be consistent. We're always going to use the date on the bill in this case. But again, you can do whatever kind of date system you want as long as it's consistent and you have 365 days included. So then they entered their kilowatt hours. We entered our costs. We do put demand and we do put demand costs if that's available. Those are more for you, but highly recommended it will make it easier to catch things if something does go wrong, which like I said, has happened before, even with our own city buildings. So I do recommend you do include those. And gas will look similar. Your bill will look similar to your water bill where things are kind of written in the same order. And then you'll enter therms if it's from citizens, and then your cost if you want to. And remember, it costs is for you, so how you want to use it. You can total it or you don't have to. But most important is you make sure the unit is correct and consistent every time, and that you include, yeah, how much you're using. And then I'm going to talk about bulk data now, in case that's something you're interested in. It's still going to require you to kind of type all of this out though. But bulk data, I can send you the spreadsheet if you are interested in doing it in bulk. This spreadsheet also is available on Energy Star Portfolio Manager. Actually, it will say this right here. Upload via spreadsheet if you want to do it that way, so you can get the spreadsheet that way. But it will look like this. And you have to have it in exactly the format that it wants, or it will not accept it and it will give you a bunch of error messages. And it's still going to ask you to type in every single, the data from every single bill. But some people do prefer this method. So if it's something that you do want to do, you can do it this way. Like I said, I can send it to you, or it is available on the same tab that you would just do it manually on Portfolio Manager. It'll have a way to download this. This one here is a yes or no question. It doesn't look like it, but it is. So you'll just hit if it is, or no, sorry, this one's yes or no estimation. So you'll hit yes or no if it's an estimate. Yeah, I know AES is having some issues with their meters right now. Like a lot of people have been affected. So like I said, you can go back and edit at any time. So I would put the best, put the most and best that you can right now. And then if it turns out, AES, fixes some of the information, which hopefully they will be doing soon. I know a lot of people were affected by their issues. Go back and edit it if you can. Especially right now, it's not 2026 yet, so there are literally no penalties if you have mistakes or, something like that that's out of your control happens. I would love if you still ask for, filled out the form that so I can keep track of who, needed an extension or an exemption. But yeah, we know that there's issues right now with AES, so when it's 2026 and they're actually like, consequences if you don't send it, meaning you might, you'll get $100 fine. But we're not going to give you the fine right away. You'll get a warning and you can get 90 extra days. So if that happens starting 2026, and I'm looking at your data, you'll get a warning email but I'm just looking to see, do you have a full calendar year of data by June 1st for the year before? So in this case, June 1st, 2024 is the year, the whole calendar for 2023 in by June 1st. That's what we're looking at to see if you're compliant. And we're just making sure that if you've indicated that you have a gas meter, that you do have one on your property, and you don't tell us that it's maybe you no longer have gas or whatever, if you've indicated that you have gas and it's active and there's nothing there, that counts as you didn't do the work. So it's just, did you enter everything that you said you had for that calendar year by the June 1st deadline of the whatever year it is? Yeah. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay. So you can add additional information and edit it. It will look something like this. These triangles are kind of like drop-down arrows. You can also click edit as well. And then you'll expand the meter by clicking the triangle, and then you'll edit it if you have anything to edit. You can do this at any time. But that's just how you would do that. It would look something like that. And then again, when you're on your energy tab and you are selecting what you want to be shared, you will, like you did with water, check the boxes next to the ones, and then hit the bubble, I guess you would call that, the bubble next to these meters account for the total energy consumption, and it will have your building name or your address, whatever you entered. And just like with water, you will click apply selections. Okay. And you'll get a little congratulations message after you've entered everything and it's been added to your property. This is the same thing. You can, once it's in here, that's the bulk of it. And then you'll either go to the energy tab and click either enter your bills, or you'll click into your meter, on the blue button where your meter is highlighted, and you can enter your current new bills for the next compliance cycle if you're doing this same time next year, because you won't be adding a meter at that time. So you'll just be editing and adding. So you'll click enter, or you can click on the actual meter this time next year to add in more data. And it will look like this. And to edit at any time, like if you notice this is a typo, you would just click on this, like for example, and it will make a little box come up, and then you can backspace and retype it, fix anything that needs to be fixed. You can do that for any of these boxes. If you ever found out you made a typo or there's the meter issue, you just click on it, and then at the bottom you'll scroll down and hit save so that any edits you made will get on there. All right, any questions about any of that? If not, I'll tell you how to share your data with the city. All right, so this is the last part, but probably the most important part is, yeah, complying with the ordinance is sharing your data with the city. Like I said, we're just looking to see if you indicated you had 3 meters that you had data for a calendar year entered for those 3 meters, and that you shared it with the city. That's what we're looking for. You have, for the previous calendar year, you have until June 1st of the current year. So this case, 2023 calendar year, you have until June 1st, 2024. It's always done in that way. So next time it will be, you'll have until, you'll have to do the 2024 calendar year, and you'll have until June 1st, 2025, so on and so forth. Okay. So it would be really helpful to double check that everything is correct. So I would make sure the most important thing is that your UBID is in there. So like I said, if I didn't have one for you, make sure you edit that before you submit. And then you will click sharing, the sharing tab next to my portfolio, and then share or edit access to a property. This is also on the how-to sheet that's printed off or online. You can do it that way. And then you'll click select properties. You'll get like a list of all your things in your portfolio. So again, if you did a practice one, you don't need to include your practice one, but make sure you include all the real ones, and you'll just check the boxes, and then apply selection. And then this is what you'll do. So it's going to have another drop down thing, or you can type it as well, where you want it typed just like this though, city_of_Indianapolis. That's what it's called. So make sure it looks exactly like this. This is on our website in case you forget or don't write it down. And it's on the handout over there as well. But it needs to look just like this. I don't need, and you probably don't want to give me all your information. So just hit read out only access. It's not going to be a big deal if you accidentally don't. I'm probably not going to look at it that detailed anyway, but you probably don't want to share everything. So just click read only. You can hit none for goals, improvements, etc. and no for share forward, and then apply selections, authorize exchange. Once you've done all of this, you will hit share properties, and you will get a little pop-up that says you did it, like you've shared your data. And you should probably get an email confirmation as well. It might go to spam or your junk folder. That has happened before. So wait like a couple minutes and then check, your spam folder and see if it went there. And if you're still not sure, you can always reach out at benchmarking@indy.gov, and I'll tell you if we got it. It might just take a second. Yeah, this is just what you can do with your data. You can do some analysis within or download some stuff in Excel and analyze it that way. It will give you different highlights and information under the reporting tab. And then you can get some more information about how your building is doing. And then I'll look into that in one second, but this is just some more resources and support. So There are always free webinars from Energy Star Portfolio Manager on various different things, how to utilize your data, funding for improving your building, etc. And then this is our general office contact, social media, and my contact if you need any of that. Benchmarking is the best one because that one doesn't ever change.